Hey, what's going on, everyone? Check out what's coming up this week on Legacies.
Actually, I tell this story better. Switch it.
Fuck, you got called out, Mike. You got called out. Yeah. So let's switch over to Mike's side of the story now.
Wealth whispers, new money screams. And if you think about that in the cannabis perspective, most of the really successful cannabis companies that I've come across are very quiet.
They're hand blowing in studio. Like, or not hand blowing, mouth blowing. That's getting dirty.
There's the intro clip.
Wait, what are you blowing? Just glass. Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to Legacies. I'm your host, Tom Ritchie, joined by my incredible partner, Wesley Bowles. Wes, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. Doing well. Doing well.
It's a busy fucking week, dude. But first, let's remind everyone that Legacies is powered by Breadstack retailers. It's time to up your e-com game. Might be time for an upgrade. How's that? Is that one getting better?
Nailing it.
I think
Nailing
our audience is probably going, shut the fuck up, guy. Just say it and get on.
Yeah.
We love Breadstack. I can't say enough awesome things about them, but I love how they are leveling the playing field. Wes, have we ever had a busier fucking week? Like, this is chaos this week, but controlled.
Yeah, I feel like we're saying that. I feel like we're saying that every other week now. But yeah, this is a busy week.
It is, and for those that are catching this now, yesterday we recorded an episode with Mr. Mike Downey, director of No Dress Rehearsal, which is the Hip Story. Beautiful tribute to the band, its history, Band of Brothers, and of course, the late, great Gord Downey. So check that out. It's a special one-off episode that Mr. West will be producing and posting. So check that out. But yeah, I mean, between that, we've got a double guest featured today. We can tell them who it is. We'll tell them who it is eventually. But it's exciting. It's exciting. You know, I cut my teeth on hip hop back in the day. So I don't think we can mention the tie too much, and I don't want to get the brand in trouble, but we've got Tical coming on today for you. So, and the founders behind that. And obviously, you know, Tical, check that out. There's a connection, and I'm sure the individuals will talk about who the connection is, but I'm not about to be the one to do that. Just in case. Just in case Health Canada is coming in and going, hey, what are you guys doing? Or you can't do that. You sent me a picture. Well, first of all, hold on. Before I get to that, CannExec Summit tomorrow, you're going to be under the gun. You've got fucking post-production, pick you up, hit Toronto, hit the dinner. Mr. Mike Elkin, love you, brother, organizes these incredible dinners. And then the next day is CannExec Summit. Unfortunately, we can only make it for one day, but holy shit, what an event this is going to be. We can only attend the one day. I wish I could stay there for the second, but wow, it's going to be a hell of a week.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear some of these the panels that they're going to have. I mean, it's nice that they're not presentations; they're actually more discussions, which they were alluding to when we had them on. But
I don't mind a good presentation, though. I think you know, the right mix of charisma and good content, relevant content, and it's not just cannabis. I don't care. Period. I don't mind a good presentation. If a presentation is done well, like it's a TED Talk, oh boy, I'm fucking tuned right in. I love those.
Yeah, I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see the difference between this type of event and the events we normally attend. Right, this will be my first kind of event in the space that's really geared towards the exec side of things and those kind of talks. It's not a bud tender event. It's not a retail event. It's not, so it'll be interesting to see the disparity between the two and what gets discussed, what the conversations are like on the floor and things like that. Yeah. And
we'll pay particular attention because obviously we want to grab some time with some individuals that have some enlightening things to say about the industry. It's always nice to hear everyone's perspective and you bring it all in and you pick where's the common denominator of what everyone is saying. And then you latch to that. This is why I always say, you know, everyone, oh, how's Legacies going? How's it going? I'm like, fucking awesome. Like, we get a couple hours every week to sit with individuals that are influencing the industry or have seen it all from all perspectives. And we get a lot of questions sometimes from individuals we meet with, which are, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And I'm like, I'm not an operator. I'm just here to help. We're here to help bring solutions to the industry, help with promotion, whatever we can do within the regulations. But all of our guests, all the individuals we interact with, they're the operators. They're the ones that know. But it's kind of nice when you have that, 10,000 foot view of what's going on, and we're just kind of hovering above it as eagles and keeping an eye what's going on and go, oh, that fucker's done. There's some good news over there. It's just really cool. It's a really cool perspective, and obviously we're honored and blessed to be able to do what we do. So it's not without work, but anyways, I want to move on. We've got let me check. Okay, so we're okay right now. Our first guests are going to be on very shortly. But I need our audience's help with something. You sent, let me add some context to this. So we've been in this 1-to-1 CBD THC flower category a little bit more, and I've been loving it. I love the clarity that you get with, I'm not going to say all, but at least in my experience, the products that I've been consuming. And you sent a picture earlier this week of a bit of a fail on a producer's part. Could be their packager, their processor. But anyways, we'll just say on a brand. And you sent me a picture and I went, oh, no bueno.
Yeah.
That is pre-rolls half filled, not twisted properly. We will not say who the brand was because you actually had a decent experience. Walk us through what happened there. Not mentioning the brand.
And the reason I'm not mentioning the brand yet is because the whole issue is not resolved yet. So we're going to see how that plays out. But so far it's positive. That's all I'll say. But anyway, I picked up a pack of 1-to-1 pre-rolls because we, like I said, we've really been loving that 1-to-1 mix, and I really like the high from that. And these are, I've had these before and they taste great. Anyway, I got them, opened the package, and the twist on the end of these pre-rolls was horrendous.
Well, one of them wasn't even closed.
One of them wasn't even closed. They kind of look like the tips have been run over by a car or something. Like it was just, the pack wasn't even tight on some of these. So, I don't know what happened there. But anyway, did reach out to the brand. Response time was very good. I got a response in less than 24 hours. And they followed up with me trying to offer solutions. And I won't mention anything yet about brand or anything like that, just until that's all resolved, because I don't think it's fair until it kind of comes to completion. So, but yeah, 1-to-1s I'm enjoying, and I normally enjoy these. It's just but it is nice to see that the nice response time on reaching out about something and getting to a solution. I'll say too, I've reached out to brands before, some edible brands when I've had an issue, and some of the responses have been very lackluster to me. Mm-hmm. It's the response right back is usually, well, what would you kind of like us to do? Because we can't send you can't send you replacements. We can't do this. And it's more so, that's not really what I'm looking for.
You're looking for acknowledgement.
Acknowledgement that shit, that shouldn't be happening. We're sorry about that. And I don't need something free sent to me to make up for it. It's more so just, I'm trying to give you the feedback here that something was fucked up with the product that I opened, and I'm one person to be getting that. I'm worried about all these other consumers who may be experiencing your product for the first time, and especially if this is your first response.
Yes,
not a great look. So the brand that I'm dealing with this right now, thank you. You know who you are. It's been great, response so far, and looking forward to getting resolved.
Well, I think so, because this really hits home for you. I mean, out of any individual that understands customer operations support and retaining customers and the value of your customer is you. I've worked with many, customer operations individuals. You are by far the best. And I think it's because of your heart. You understand the consumer heart, their mindset. And it's not that you're always looking for restitution of some sort. You don't need a product swap. It's a matter of acknowledging and looking for ways to improve. But this is a call out to these brands that, you have certain community. In this case, it's Wes and I potentially reaching out, and you probably did it. Maybe you're getting a little bit more love because of who you are, and we have legacies, that sort of thing. But I don't think it's the case in this case. But there are these opportunities. If I was a customer, all customers should be treated equally, and regardless of who's reaching out. So that could be your 1-800 numbers, that could be your email addresses, your contact us's on your websites. The vast majority, I think, that are going to, they're going to do something through an Instagram, or I doubt a Facebook, but X maybe. Make sure you reply. Just respond. Just don't, that's the worst thing you could do. We understand, because we understand the industry more than your average consumer. If a consumer takes the time to reach out, they are frustrated, right? They either love it, love you, or they're frustrated.
That's just it, because the first place, as a regular consumer, the first place I would then go after not receiving a response via Instagram or emailing, guess where I'm going? I'm going to Reddit, or I'm going to Twitter, or and I'm going to get other people fired up about something like that, right? And that's where the mob is now making up their mind about your brand, right?
Yeah.
And it's just it's
well, I can tell you
brutal.
this. So you sent me the photo, and I'm like, fuck, I need some more. And it was right on the heels of having Dr. Ira Price on and talking about, because I'm switching some my nightly routines up, and he's like, you need a 4-to-1. I'm like, I don't know if there's any flour. It's difficult. If anyone can help with this, I think I know who can. Potentially us. But anyways, finding and sourcing a good 1-to-1. This is where I need our audience's help. So you send me the photo. I'm like, damn, I don't have any. I need to find some. So I check with a few local dispensaries, and I come across our friends over at Simply Bear. I'm going to put way in for this one. Okay.
Yeah, move that over center camera for a second.
Center.
Take
this one?
back.
Which one?
No. This other camera,
this
just bring
here?
it to the center of their front. There you go.
Is that good? How's that?
That's good.
So listen, Simply Bear, I found one, Simply Bear Organic. This is it's pretty much a 1-to-1. It's called BC Organic Harlequin. And so 5 pre-rolls. It's not, it's not going to knock your socks off, which I don't want anymore. I've been getting to a point where I'm like, ooh, I need clarity because I'm still doing work at night. This is beautiful. Now, I don't know necessarily if this is generalized across the 1-to-1 type categories. Your terps, I haven't seen really high terps, decent terps, and these are decent. But the smell is incredible. The taste is phenomenal. But here's the thing. The high, crystal clear, like to the point where my wife even said, she's like, you're high. And I'm like, oh, I'm perfect. I'm ready to go. Like, I am so clear right now. Like, what do we need to do? Like, I'm ready to go. So audience, please, if you know of great 1-to-1 flower out there, or 4-to-1 even, hit us up. Tell us in the comments if we break this clip out. Tell us in the comments, what do I need to be looking for? Because it is hard to find it right now. And I want the good stuff. Don't hold back. Anyways, enough on that. I caught a post, and I wanted to call this out because we have our beloved Happles that Onel gifted us. And it's Dave over. So I think it's your electric Dave. Now that's his Instagram handle. Maybe you can put it up. I caught a post from him that looks like he's getting a patent. It may be patent pending at this point. Now, as you know, all of his glass, these Happles included, they're hand blown in studio, not hand blown, mouth blown. That's getting dirty.
Yeah.
The glass blowers. Anyways, and I've seen shots before where
there's the intro. There's the intro clip.
What are you blowing? Just glass. But he's shown there's pictures and shots that I've seen him post before previously where I don't know if it's a studio, his living room, I don't know what it is, but it's just Happle boxes upon Happle boxes and all these. And I'm thinking of you, which is because we want to call out something else, but I'm thinking of you going, oh boy, Wes ever got in there. Hold on a second. Is your Happle still alive?
Apple's still alive.
Okay,
well,
good.
I haven't used it in a while because I went through some change. Like I was on the hash for a little bit, then I switched over to the dabs, and then now I'm on joints.
And then you
right
got a
now,
rolling machine, and all of a sudden you've got
I got a rolling
500
machine. I've got to whip back. I've got to whip back, do the circle again, and get back to hash.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've still got it. It's still fresh.
I think I think it's really cool. I don't know the first thing about acquiring a patent other than filing for it. I would imagine it's a bit of an uphill battle, but it deserves it. Right? Like the Happle's awesome. I use mine from time to time, probably once or twice a week, maybe. But I just love it. And I love that he's getting a patent on it.
Now, do you know, is the patent related to the design of it itself, or is it related to the process in which he makes them? Because I know you can patent both.
So from what I read, I don't think it's the process in which he makes it. I think it's the design, and I could be incorrect. And for those, Dave, even correct us in the comments if we break this out. But or in the full episode. I think it's the design. There's something very unique about the design. And the reasoning for this, I think, is because he can't keep up with the demand the way it's currently going. So I don't know if he's looking to bring in support and he wants to keep certain trade secrets or the reasoning behind it necessarily. But it seems like it's a good problem to have where, hey, I can't keep up. I'm not going to say he's going to mass produce them because I don't think in this context you can mass produce these, but maybe I'm wrong. What the fuck do I know about glass blowing? I'd love to glass blow though. Have you ever seen those?
I'd love to give it a whirl. Because I don't know if you watched it on Netflix. I watched oh shit, what's that show called? It's a competition style show with glass blowers.
Yeah, there's something I've seen and I got right into it. Stressful looking though, like stressful.
Oh yeah,
so
just sweating buckets all day.
Yeah, I think it's cool. And then in that vein of glass that we're discussing, you sent me a video, which is ideally this is right up your fucking alley, dude. Like right up your alley.
These guys are my guys.
Indestructible bong or glassware on the planet, perhaps.
It must be. If there's others out there, I apologize. I haven't seen you yet, but okay. There's companies called Whomp It Glass. They are American based, but they do ship to Canada. There's this video. I'm going to overlay the video right here, right now. On the episode, this glass is the most indestructible glass I've ever seen.
Is it? Are they using? Well, is that what they're selling to? Like how the fuck?
I don't know.
They're breaking windows out of cars. They're throwing it down the street.
Well, let me put it this way: when you see this video, okay, you're going to tell me like, either this stuff is real or it's fake. And if it's fake, then whoever's doing their video editing and CGI, I need to get in touch with because it's very impressive. But
I'm impressed.
They're like driving over these pipes with cars. They're taking this 5 foot long bong with a massive long stem, which is usually a weak point, right? If you've got a big long stem with a heavy base, they're smashing this thing on the car, breaking open pallets with it. Wow. This glass is indestructible.
Once we definitively know, I'm getting you one. It'll be my gift to you, and I want to see you put it through the test because I know you've got some issues with glass, and thank God the Happle is still alive and kicking. But if Whomp It is real, expect I will gift you something from their collection. I don't know what yet, but I hope it's real. I sent this to my brother-in-law.
I hope so too.
My brother-in-law is bong fanatic. Best taste, best way to smoke it, right? And he's like, holy shit. Even because he'll leave it, like if he's outside, he'll leave it beside the door because it'll smell, and I'll come out, right? And whoa, almost kicked it. Like not a great spot for a bong. I mean, this one you could use as a fucking baseball bat. Like,
yeah, I could put this fucker in my washer and dryer and just run it through a cycle and it'd be perfectly fine.
An ISO bath. There you go. Oh, how do you do it? In the washing machine. How do you do yours?
Yeah. This shit looks insane. It looks like a lethal weapon. It's crazy. So
nuts. I do want to do a quick shout out as well because the Growup conference is going on. Randy and team obviously organized a fantastic conference. We were unable to make it with so much on the go this week. We've got lots of friends that are there though. And you'll recall that Mr. Kirk Toussaint was talking about judging. And I think he was judging, I don't know all the categories they were judging, but Remo is there and they're sampling. So the results are in, at least they've posted the dry flower category winners. I've got them written here because I don't want to screw it up. So our friends over at Origine Nature. So Alex, what is his exact role? He's just a fucking mastermind over there, but all credit he will always put to his team, as many do. But their golden goat took first place. So Alex, I don't know when I'm going to see you next. I got to try and find it locally. I get excited about this stuff because I know who some of the judges were, and I know that their palates will be what I'm attuned to and what I'm looking for. I love when someone gives me the best recommendation. I'm like, fucking thank you. I don't look for free product. It's a matter of tell me the good stuff. I will find it. Right. Second place goes to, I've never heard of this brand. So Mauves, it sounds like it's obviously a Quebec brand. Looks like Quebec cleaning up. Mauves et Herbes. And it's the strain or cultivar was Ripped Off Runts. Now I've had runts. I don't know what Ripped Off Runts is. Accidental breeding. I have no idea. Tell us in the comments. And third, but not least here is our boy.
Wait. What? Give me a second. I'm going to insert a drum roll. Going to insert a drum roll.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. Is our friend Mr. Kevin Varner with his frosted fruitcake. You remember how much I went off about this? Wow. I could imagine how difficult it is scoring these flowers because I know Royal Harvest. I know Kevin. I know his heart. I know his dedication, and I know the quality of his product. These were likely barely a point apart. I would have to imagine. I'll reach out to Kirk by email at some point and ask him. And I know he probably can't say anything, but I would have to imagine.
Information.
Yeah, these are heavy hitters, man. So, anyways, congrats to all the winners with the Growup dry flower category. But super Happle. Freudian slip there. Super happy to see Kevin placing. He's a king. Just love that guy. And I love Alex too.
We got to get Kevin back on. It's been a hot minute.
It's been too long. There is some news coming from Mr. Varner. I can't share it yet. He was giving me some inside scoop on something, and I can't wait. Kevin, hit me up. I'm going to hit you up. Actually, I'll hit you up.
Is this without revealing anything? Is this media related? Is that what we're talking about? There's something.
It should be media related. I'll tell you that much. I don't want to say.
Anyway,
I don't want to say the wrong thing because I can tell you this: it's fucking legendary. It's fucking awesome. I don't know any other adjectives I can use, but when everyone hears of the news, let's say it that way, you'd be fucking impressed. So Kevin, we're going to do a follow-up. We need to talk about what's going on. Anyways, big episode. We've got Josh and Mike coming up first. So Mike Schilling and Joshua Reynolds. I wonder if he goes by Josh. Because everything I've always seen is Joshua all the time, so I call him Joshua.
It's interesting. It's going to be nice to have. We haven't really had many discussions on the finance side of the industry, and this is going to be.
Well, we know it's a problem.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It wasn't a problem in 2016, 17, 18, even in the 19 a little bit, but now it's a fucking problem. So, we had some time to connect with Joshua, and love the solution that WeCan Capital has come up with. I'm hoping to see it across Canada. I think right now he's hyper focused in BC. And obviously, a ton of opportunities for clients to be able to help. And when we met with Josh or Joshua, it was, you could tell the formation and concept of this and being able to move the needle and move it forward was all from a place of support. I fucking love that. I love that so much when individuals, yes, there's opportunity to make money. Folks, it's okay to make money. It's okay. All these crazy thoughts that, they're in the industry just to make money. Well, who the fuck isn't? Like, seriously, do you have a brand to go broke? No. But anyways, you could tell that it was from a place of support. And any of these companies, concepts, services, whatever they might be, if they're in the business to be able to support this industry and move it forward, I can get behind that. But we'll be able to share some information of what WeCan is doing. And then after that, Tical. We got Tical on. That's fucking awesome.
Big episode.
Dude, when you attach who Tical is tied to, you'll know that I am super excited because I cut my teeth on this. I can't say much more than that. I don't want to get in trouble. Did I tell you that?
You also don't want to age yourself too much, do you?
I'm okay with that. I'm 49 years old. I'm all right with that. I've got 49 years of wisdom I try to recall. But I think that, Tical, fuck your lifestyle. It's in my head, hasn't gone away. It's been there since I heard it in 1994. I think 1994. Bangers, man. These club bangers back then. I'll get you a sample. Don't worry. Maybe even of the product. Anyways, we'll find out what's going on with that as well after we return.
Breadstack e-commerce. It might be time to upgrade.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. We're joined by two guests today. Two guests, count them. We've got Joshua Reynolds of WeCan Capital and Mike Schilling of Community Savings. Gentlemen, how are you this morning?
Very well. Good to be here. Good to be here, Tom.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. It's amazing to be here.
What's more amazing is the program you guys have brought together. This is when I saw this, I'm like, woo, look at this, baby. We're bringing some support to this industry. And I don't want to bastardize it. I'm going to let you gentlemen explain it. But first, let's understand your relationship. How did you guys meet?
It's a good story. Josh, you're going to take it. We tell it slightly differently, but Josh is better telling it than me.
Yeah, sure. Happy to lead into it. It's actually probably one of the best business personal relationship moments I think I've had in my life. It's, the kismet of the world bringing everything together. So Mike and I had never met, and we had a mutual friend who is a pretty senior level CEO of a cannabis company here in BC. He called me up individually and just said, hey, let's go to dinner here in Vancouver. I want you to meet somebody. And so I went and sat down and was introduced to Mike, and Mike gave me the typical Vancouver, do you know who I am? And I had to burst his ego and say, sorry, man, I don't. And
Actually, I tell this story better. Switch it.
Fuck, you got called out, Mike. You got called out. Yeah. So let's switch over to Mike's side of the story now.
So, but more importantly, so Mike and I, he said, look, I'm president and CEO of Community Savings Credit here in BC. We are the main advocate for cannabis banking in British Columbia. And I was like, it's amazing. You're well needed, well overdue, and that's really impressive. And then I kind of explained to him what I've been doing for a couple of years of, piloting a program to provide working capital for cannabis companies. And so Mike basically at that point said, well, I've got the people, I've got the liquidity, I've got the mechanisms, the systems, I've got it built out. What I don't have is a partner to help me, get the message out. And that was kind of phase one. And I love how Mike tells the second part of that. So that's kind of phase one about dinner and what we talked about. But what got really exciting is with Mike now.
Yeah, thanks, Josh.
Yeah.
And it was funny, actually. I was just thinking, Josh and I have kind of told this story a couple of times when we've been doing things in media or to friends or whatever. But yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, a mutual friend who's the CEO of a large cannabis LP out here in BC. And, the fact that, someone who does my job, right? I'm a banker. I run a credit union out here in BC. The fact that I can count these people who I met professionally right through my work, shows exactly what we try to do at Community Savings, which is not to sell to the industry, but to be part of the industry and be on a journey with the industry over the last 5 or 6 years. And, I do count close personal friends of mine as people who've been on that road and way before I've been involved in the legacy space as well. But yeah, I think as Josh said, we had that initial meeting and, the concept of the idea came out. It wasn't something we've been working on, but Josh obviously brought a huge amount of expertise, and I thought, hey, we could do this, and it's going to help. And it was funny because our second meeting, kind of, our second date, right? We met for dinner again. We said, hey, let's catch up again. We went to dinner, and I'm on my way, and I'm thinking about what are the key points I want to have in this discussion. And one of them was, I'm going to have to tell this guy that there's no way we're charging the rates that the private lenders charge, right? That's just not how we do this. We're not here to pick the pocket of the hardworking industry, right? We're here to try to support it and be on a long-term journey with it. And, I'm kind of thinking, I'm not sure how he'll take this, right? This guy's a money guy. He wants to take in as much money as he wants. And, the funny thing is we find out later, Josh is having exactly the same, conversation in his own head saying, nice. I hope Mike doesn't think that this is, a good scheme.
They come in with these astronomical rates. I can't dispatch that capital at that rate. Are you crazy?
Yeah, exactly. Right. And, we didn't know each other that well at the time. So I'm kind of, I don't know what motivates Josh. He doesn't know what motivates me. But we get there at the meeting and we kind of like, we both blurt out, hey, we've got a problem with the rate here, right? And it was, at that point, you've got to be with people who, don't just have the technical capabilities or the capabilities to do it. They've got to have the same mindset and the same motivation. And I knew from that moment we were gonna, be able to build something pretty special. And I hope we have for the industry.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's wild. I love where business plans come together out of a passion. Right. So obviously you both independently up until that point had experienced your own personal turmoil, whether that was through a friend or a connection of some sort, but you see the struggle. I mean, you don't have to look far. If you're in this industry, even a minute amount, you can see the struggle. Not that it's all doom and gloom, right? I think, it's the processes in which these operators have to function. And in some cases, I get a PO or a purchase order from a certain distributor or whichever province it might be. Oh, shit. I need working capital, right? And that's one of the biggest struggles that is not really talked about that much. And that's why we wanted to be able to connect with you, because we think the program is phenomenal. We'll talk about what your plans beyond BC are, because obviously there's a massive market available to you as customers that you can help. But when you're structuring this, how does it work? Is it we've got access to capital that we know we can dispatch? Because that, Mike, first, that must have been a tough conversation. Right? For we'll call it the overlords of banking that have all this capital that they need to dispatch, because for at least 5 years, no one's wanted to touch this industry with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, for sure. And that, and to be honest, so 2018 rolls around. I'm fairly recently in this job. I'd kind of moved to Canada early 2018. And, I'm seeing, not from a professional aspect, just from a personal aspect, I'm seeing this stuff coming through about legalization, which hit in, I think, October that year, wasn't it? And it was interesting. So my board of directors, talk about the overlords, the nice board of directors that I work for, they'd made a decision actually prior to me joining the organization that when legalization happened, we were going to ban legal businesses, right? It was it's an ethical decision, a moral decision that they made. We didn't really realize that no one else would. Pretty much no one else would. And so, we started opening retail, like operating accounts in, actually nothing happened in October. Out here in BC, there was like one store in Kelowna, but over the next 12 or 18 months, a lot of retailers opened. So we started opening accounts. And I got a phone call. One morning from our branch in Victoria on Vancouver Island. And they said, hey, we've opened 16 business accounts in a few days. And that's quite a lot of business for us. And I said, okay, what's going on next? So we did a bit of an investigation. We found out that, the large credit unions, the banks, were just not playing in this space at all. And that was like I said, it was a bit of a surprise to us, but we did the work then. We realized there was an opportunity and we realized there was a problem to be solved. And so, we worked this out. And I knew at the time we had to make a decision. We were either going to be out of this industry like everyone else, or we were going to be all in. And I wanted to totally, I wanted to be the banker of cannabis out here in BC. And obviously, history tells it's the latter. So we are the largest banker of cannabis in BC. And I often say, this story isn't just about cannabis. It's about credit unions. This is what I do day to day. Every credit union started for the same reason. There's a group of people who are getting stiffed, either banks or by mainstream financial services. And so, we were founded in 1944, but in 2024, there's still that same story of there's an industry out there, people, in the legal sector going about their business, putting their life savings into businesses and serving their community. And, they're just not being treated fairly. And in a way, I think, probably should be illegal, right? The fact that you have a legal business and walk into a bank and they can say, no thanks, go next door. So we, it was definitely an ideological play for us. It's been a lot of fun working with the industry. It's a fun industry. It's been fun to see a sort of nascent industry grow. And there's a lot of world experts that I get to work with who've been doing this for decades, right?
That's wild.
Yeah, we've had a great time, and hopefully we're helping a little bit.
Yeah, you actually answered a question that I was going to ask in my head. So as you're talking about that, I'm thinking, why not the mainstream banks, right? They obviously have treasure troves of cash available or capital available. But I love that, the credit union, because, and I'll say this, I moved all of my business away from the bigger banks into a credit union for a multitude of reasons. But one is I've got a relationship. It's relational, and they're truly there to support your endeavors, be that business, be that your own personal finances. And you can have a relationship with the bank manager. And if they need to run it up the chain, then they do that. That's fine too. So so now it makes a lot of sense to me as to why a credit union, community savings in this case, would move into the space, because, as you said, was it 1944? That's when it started. So it's that long of coming from the angle of support, not just to capitalize. Obviously, banks need to make money. We're not silly. Okay, very cool. And then, Josh, you've obviously been very close to the industry for a number of years. Friends, family, acquaintances have struggled, but you were able to hone in on, this is one area in particular that this could be a game changer. So walk us through that process of how that program became what it is.
So I started looking at this quite some time ago. I had a history in asset-based lending, luxury cars, heavy equipment, John Deere, that kind of stuff. And I had a friend of mine at the time, and we were talking about cannabis and how we'd like to be involved. He ended up dropping out of going forward with that, but I honestly, I just couldn't let it go. And what I find so interesting about the business and so contradictory from the banking side was that you tell me a industry that is more scrutiny from a government entity and more already underwritten, processes in place than cannabis. To me, it was a safe bet, not a bad bet, because of the oversight. Right. And I know that, most cannabis companies don't like that. But the reality is guy who's looking at financing this kind of stuff and being able to, work with solutions, I always saw that as a positive. between taxation, between Health Canada, between municipal licensing.
Right.
Like, it just made sense for me. So I ended up, doing, pretty well on putting some money out on the street for this. But meeting Mike was the game changer for me. And I'll just kind of go into a little bit of mechanics of why. One of the problems with private money or family office money is this, horrible back-end processes that are there, which is like sweep accounts and, signing away your firstborn, like just really difficult paper, really difficult industry and people to work with. And then the costs are just, they're so prohibitive that it's insane. And to be honest, I've made this public. Mike has heard me say this. I was part of that, but I never liked it. I was so uncomfortable with all of it because, I didn't know that we were helping the way we should have been helping. So when Mike and I got together and started talking about this, and we just realized how much our synergies are really aligned ethically, morally, and business-wise, I just knew it was a game changer. Like for us to, especially Mike, the way he thinks about the levers of the banking industry and how we can, set up these accounts to help these customers in their name. There's transparency, disclosure of what your daily fees are, how quickly they can fund. I mean, like, Mike has said very publicly, he can buy every single invoice from every BCLP right now in this province and put the money into the streets. Like, you tell me where you can find that, and you can't. And
jeez, that's a bold statement.
Bold statement.
Like, really,
and he's
I'd love to do it. I'd love to do it. That's on my bucket list one day. Hey, let's buy every dollar.
Every invoice. Yeah, that's wild.
And that takes away a lot of headaches for a lot of people because, what you were alluding to earlier, Tom, was the cannabis tax that has just been absolutely prevalent everywhere. Like, everybody's had their hand out. For us, when we built this system, we wanted it to be affordable. We wanted it to be extremely fast. You want working capital. It's not, you don't want it in 2 weeks. It's like, hey, I got an opportunity to use it now that's going to be advantageous. Mike and I work really hard with his incredible team to get through some hurdles. But now we're, I think our fastest funding is about 45 minutes. We're generally around a couple hours. And all of our funding is same day. So, the nice part about the government paying on every Friday is that we can settle every Friday. And then to do it with affordable rates and to do it so you have your own bank account and so that you can, transfer money. Like, honestly, this is what we've been looking for. Now, I will say about this one kind of part that's exciting. Now, if you're Mike, for instance, right? How do you look at a cannabis company? How do you finance these guys? Like, how do you look at their numbers? Because they're not plumbers, they're not electricians, they're not opening a dental practice, they're not opening a retail store, and so now what he gets is to help the industry finance other products, right? So we've been working on mortgage deals together. He should be bragging about this, but he's got credit cards as well. I mean, like, he's a game changer in this industry. Not to, to keep sucking up on him because, it's the way it is. But the reality is,
do you know who he is?
Yeah, now I do. Yeah, now I do. Yeah. But like that to me is just amazing. It's what I always wanted to achieve in this industry. Now I'm going to go to your next question. So yeah, Mike and I obviously attracted a lot of people to what we're talking about and what we're doing, and we've been working very aggressively to take this product out east, and it's going to end up being, a working group as opposed to against one another. We're bringing a couple other credit unions together, and we're pretty sure we're going to be out east within, what do you think, Mike, 3 to 6 months, or sooner, and then we're going to be national before the end of next year, because Mike's done the heavy lifting. He's done the hard work. And he set it all up, and it's time now to put a lot of money into this industry because the timing is right.
Yeah. So you talked about a few items in there. So a scorecard, if you would, right? Almost a FICO, right? But taking all these, indicators into question of, how strong, because you're right, they're not, it's not a typical business that you have a history of analyzing and going, okay, if your receivables are here, your rents, all of, at the end of the day, your P&L is this. I get it. Okay. Yeah. I can now see how we can potentially help you here. But you've obviously created some sort of a scorecard, some ingestion form to be able to go, okay, in order for us to do this and dispatch capital, you need to meet a certain amount of criteria. But the turnaround, that's crazy. Like, same day. And again, I think this just comes back from, I've always been super supported by credit unions, which is why I love them so much. But it's that personal relationship where you feel like you're being treated like someone you've known forever, and they're taking a genuine interest in. We want to make sure not only do you survive, because survival is one thing, right? We want to see exponential growth over time, and I think from your angle of support, you're helping with that. Obviously, there's money to be made. Wes and I are joking about this pre-guest, and it was, we hear this a lot. Oh, they're just in the industry to make money. Well, who the fuck isn't? Like, are you? I'm not doing this at a charity, right? Like, yes, but we can be fair and we can have morals in how we go about doing
for sure.
So, and I love the fact. So tell us why it's focused primarily BC right now, and maybe some of the dynamics of how the program works, because our audience obviously full of a ton of different operators. They've been turned down, they've been turned down, they've been turned off. That's what I really want to convey in this episode is you don't need to be turned off. There are people, genuine people that want to help. So again, how the program works, why BC, and then the dynamics of the program.
And Tom, in answer to that question, I want to pick up. I appreciate the comment you made about, the difference you see in credit unions. And it's obviously, my background, I'm a banker, I'm an investment banker. I moved to Canada. I didn't want to be an investment banker when I grew up, so I came out here and got into the weed industry, right? It's a story as old as time, right? What
do you want to be when you grow up? A weed banker. Teach.
But yeah, and that's it. We have a culture we've had for a long time of my team get paid to think, right? Not just to do, right? And so when they get a problem, they think about it and go, okay, what's the right thing to do with it, right? And that's genuine, right? It's not. That's what we do, and that's why we're making a difference. And the other thing is, we're when we made this decision to go all in, we are now owned by the cannabis industry. That's the way a credit union works. From an account, you're a shareholder. So I have a real accountability. And when I wake up in the morning, that is the mindset of me and my team. It's like, well, these, when you talked about the overlords before, the actual true overlords are our members or our customers, including the cannabis.
Which it should be, but that's not the way the vast majority of banking works.
No, exactly. No, it's absolutely not. And it's not true, because it is a bank, you're owned by your shareholders, and these are customers. These are customers to take money from, to give to your shareholders, right? That's how it works. Exactly. There's nothing wrong with that. That's how that system works. It's different for us because our shareholders are the same people as our customers. So I'm not incentivized to steal from one to give back to the same person. And I think, there's a big difference in the mindset, and some credit unions are better, frankly, at keeping that in mind than others. And we work pretty closely. There's 2 credit unions out in Ontario who are good and strong in the space, and there's us out here in BC. You probably know those credit unions in Ontario, but credit unions, in simple terms, operate on a province by province level, right? It's like the Canadian specials, right? So we operate in BC. That's the short answer to why we're kind of limited to do that. Obviously, Josh, he can talk more about Canada wide. We can operate, I guess, across Canada, across the world, whatever they do. And as we built this program together, I'm happy to be working with Josh and supporting him taking this to provinces and figuring out how that might work. But yeah, so the quick story of kind of what we did, and we went step by step, and we have a regulator. We have a financial regulator, the BC Financial Services Authority. And, when we started to get into this, they're asking lots of questions. It's new, it's proximity to legacy, right? All those kind of things, what you're going to do. So the first 2 years, I was having almost weekly conversations with my regulator about what we're doing, and we had to roll out slow. So first it was basic accounts for retailers, then it was basic accounts for micros, then we went into the LPs, then we did, so we were step by step, we were growing with the industry. Yeah. And, what I used to say to the industry is, you don't need me to be a heroic failure. I'm not part of the protest movement here. You need a bank account, and you need me to be, this side of the line, so I keep providing you these services. And thankfully, that conversation with the regulator was really matured. And so I'll give that to the financial regulator out here. They've really matured as they've seen we've built expertise. You're talking about before about, we can credit score almost businesses because, there's very few people in this country who have the insights that we do into the finances of retailers, micros, LPs, whoever it is in the industry. So we've been able to do that, and that's been the conversation. I work in the business of risk. They're the decisions I make, and you get lots of passionate people coming and saying, "Hey, I won $1 million. I've got the greatest weed," and it's like, So did the last guy. So did the last guy. So did the last guy. Right?
Yeah.
And,
Sounds like they're dropping samples at dispensaries.
yeah, exactly. Right?
This is the best. This is the best. You want to sell this.
Exactly. And it's the same conversation. I'm saying, okay, that's a great conversation, like you said, at the dispensary, right?
Yeah.
But it's not the conversation to have when you're looking at financially, building your business. And so, we going from very little help that we could provide, and, we were providing what we could. We've moved now, as Josh said, we guarantee a credit card to every cannabis business in the province. Now that's not necessarily big money, but it is about respect. It's saying you're a business owner,
Sure.
you should have a business credit card, you should be able to do that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Have that personal admin headache. We've got millions of dollars lent out for mortgage lending, right? So if you own your facility and you can leverage that, then we've got millions of dollars lent out for that. The factoring piece was really the game changer. That was the big piece where, out in BC, we could put $50 or $60 million per month out into the industry, right? And that's how industries work. The fact that this industry's worked without a functioning banking industry is a total miracle, and it's testament to the hardworking people in it, right?
Yeah.
And the passion that they have. But what we're doing out in BC, what we should be doing, which is just providing that liquidity, get the gears of the industry working, which doesn't only benefit the LP, because what it means is the growers can get paid quicker, right? And we can get more production cycles, and the people who are employed in the industry have more continuity of that employment. So there's that ripple effect of the benefit which comes out. And that's why the factoring piece was so important. This is about, factoring is actually, if you look at the history of banking and go back, thousands of years, this is kind of where it started. A product such as factoring was kind of where it started. So for banking nerds like me, it's really cool to come back and go, yeah, okay, a new industry, this is what you need, right? This is what, someone in Arabia figured out, thousands of years ago, whatever, right? So yeah, it's been fun, like I said, but it's actually really important. And, what you meant, last thing I'll say on this, you mentioned before about leverage. We made a press release quite recently. One of our members who just uses the factoring facility, they something like 2 or 3x their output because of this product. Because they could, they could manage their cash flows, and get those SKUs out, get those SKUs out. There's no delay. And as we know, the boards are looking at SKU consolidation now, and you want to be an LP who is able to deliver right on time every time. And this part of this LP that we work out here in BC is really benefiting from that. So as a banker, to say, hey, I can help you double the size of your business. That's incredible, right? It's incredible.
That's crazy. That's awesome. Well, let me first say how impressed I am that a banker can speak about the industry properly, because it sounds like you can, and it. Obviously, you've been in it long enough now. That's impressive, one. But two, I'm envisioning this as you're speaking about it, going, I used to be long time ago, ages ago, I was in preventative maintenance. I ran great big maintenance crews, installed software, preventative maintenance programs. And I'm viewing this large machine where it's like, there's one area, we're not sure what it is yet, but there's an area in this machine that just needs a little tweak. It needs maybe some grease or a little oil. And that's what I'm seeing this as, because there are a lot of great companies that have a ton of great products, but their ARs or account receivables are killing them. They're crushing them at the end of the day. And they're like, yeah, BC or, Ontario, I can get you more product. I know we signed on as general listings, but I just don't have the working capital right now. If I could just finish this room, or hell, I can't even get nutrients in right now. I can't, I've got $100,000 outstanding to, General Hydroponics or someone. They're not giving me any more newts. I can't fire a new room up. And I know this sounds very basic and simple in the grand scheme of what you guys are doing, but it's true. Yeah. It's these most simple areas of operations that are just dragging them down. And, to being able to access capital, that it really just, it's relief. It's whether that's temporary or long-term, but you're right. Love that you can get a credit card, right? Yeah. Jesus, like it's not a criminal industry. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's still some criminal activity happening within the industry. That's all right. But for those that have went legit, and I just love that I can hear your hearts in this, where you're coming from this area of support and making it work. Because what do we do as a collective within this industry? We all look at the opportunities we have to influence and help. In your case, it's capital, right? It's banking. In our case, it's promotion. It's getting the word out, making sure that we're doing it. Everyone has a small role to play within this industry. And when we can come together, that's where the fucking magic happens. That's the beauty of it. Yeah. And no longer will, Europe and US and Australia and Israel in particular look at us and go, fuck your weed. It's garbage. We don't want this. You guys have it all messed up. Look at your regulations. You can't even operate. You can't even get a credit card. Like, are you really even legit anymore? Right. So I love that. I know that's a long tirade of saying, I love what you're saying.
No, but it's true, Nate.
really,
It's
really
like
is.
how many Sunday afternoons were ruined by people because they're messing around with their expenses and all that, right? And that we're all human beings, right? We're all doing these jobs, but we all have our Sunday afternoons where we want to be doing some else.
Right.
And it's about the respect to the industry. And like I say, when you go to these cannabis conferences, in some ways they're kind of like every conference you ever go to, right? But people are kind of semi-baked walking around. It's really good,
Sure.
but one of the things, the actual big difference between going to a cannabis conference and going to, your insurance or your banking or whatever, is everyone in the room is passionate about what they do. Because if you weren't, you'd have quit years ago. There's no way you...
Yeah, any other industry would be like, no, I'm done. Yeah. I'm selling the farm.
And that's what you recognize.
No
you
way.
Go, everyone here is passionate. You can't lower the votes. They just... It shows.
Does that come into account, Mike, when it comes to, the reason for and the foundation of this program that you guys have created? Passion must play a certain role in this. And maybe it's just a general understanding that, look, these guys they're going to fight tooth and nail. Yeah. They were part of the culture. They are part of the culture. They have legacy. They're not changing. Because I remember even in legacy days, it's like, oh man, a crop failure. I'm not getting anything to the, I'm not dropping packs this month, guys. Food stamps maybe. But I think that when you can understand the operators and the passion for that, be that retail all the way to, genetics and genetics providers, there is that sense of passion, which means they're going to do everything they can to protect that money that you are potentially releasing to them.
Yeah. There's a thing that we use in the industry, and it's like the 5 C's of lending. I can never remember all 5, right? But it's like, capital, cash flow, all these technical things. If you want to loan from me, these are the things I'm going to look at. But one of the C's actually is character, right? And for me, it's a bit of a old adage where you go, that's the most important one, because what you're saying is this guy won't quit, right? This person won't quit. And when you see someone who's worked through the legacy industry, worked through the transition, and gone through all that, you're like, okay, this person's not someone who gives up and is just gonna go on to the next week. They commit to this industry, they put everything in.
But is that not the differentiator? Let me ask you this, Josh. Is that not the differentiator? Because I would never hear. I go to an RBC, I go to a TD, I go to any of these banks. The last one of their 5 C's, and maybe that's the 6th, I don't know. They're not worried about care. They type shit into a computer. No, sorry, you don't qualify.
I'd agree with you. And, I will say this is kind of a weird adjective, but, wealth whispers, new money screams. And if you think about that in the cannabis perspective, most of the really successful cannabis companies that I've come across are very quiet. They are not publicly complaining about anything. They've got their heads down. They're creating a great product. They're delivering that product at all times. I could probably name 5 cannabis companies that I'm sure you guys would know of, but the general public just wouldn't. And they're doing really well. Right. And they just kept their head down. They know what the rules of the game are. They pay their bills on time. And surprisingly, I guess not surprisingly, that's who Mike and I have been attracting. There's usually 3 times that you use an AR financing company. And that is, or if you're you're a startup, which you could argue cannabis is still a startup. Turn around when you're in some serious trouble and you need to get liquidity to pay off everybody. And then hockey stick growth. And a lot of people are put out of business because they don't have the working capital based around their success. Like, think about that for a sec. If you got somebody like the OCS who's ready to buy and want consistent deliveries from consistent product that they know is going to get to every retailer, that's the customer you got to satisfy. I mean, like, I understand you got to sell to retailers, but you have one customer to focus on, and that's making sure that the OCS gets what they want so they can sell what they want. Yeah. And we provide that. And our customers, and I think Mike would agree with this, our customers have been using our money that way. One of them, only sells us receivables for 14 days. That's it. I mean, the costs are so small for them. But the turning of money is really important to them for them to get these opportunities, to get payroll done, get everything done. So when you look at us as a growth mindset finance opportunity and not as a I'm not going to make it finance opportunity, the game changes. Like, it really changes. And that's, what Mike was alluding to about this one company that's, basically 2 or 3xing their business because they can phone the OCS and say, hey, by the way, I'll take whatever order you want to give me, and I'm going to deliver it every time. And when they started with us, they didn't have that ability. Now they do, and it's showing.
That is saying something huge, especially to, a distributor like the OCS, which are also competitors in some ways. Well, they are competitors. But we hear that a lot, Josh, which is, if I could just get more, because otherwise, I mean, you go to a flow through now, that's almost where you go. I realize some brands, they have to enter through flow through, and that's okay. But when you're a GL, a general listing, if you end up not being able to supply, continue to, re-up on those orders, chances are you may get slotted into a flow through. And they say, I'm not an operator. I'm just, by what I've heard, flow through is where you go to die, right? So if you're putting the Kevin O'Leary hat on, flow through is where you go to die in this industry. And I don't think that's necessarily true. I think it's a great opportunity for entrance. But you're right, but I do want to, because in that press release, we know that, receivables and your nets, right? So you're talking a 14. The vast majority of these operators, they've seen 30s, 60s, and 90s by the time they're getting paid. In what fucking world do we live in where, these companies would be paying out? I get it. That's standard in a lot of industry. I get that. But they also have war chests of capital in some cases to be able to absorb that feels like a penalty to me. Do you know what I mean? Like, it feels like, your product's great. We're moving it great. We've got lots of orders coming through. The dispensaries are picking it up. Man, we'll pay you in 60 days.
I'll add to this before Mike gets in. So, if you really wanted to open finance the cannabis industry of Canada, growers did. Because growers use their own money to grow the product. And then they got, kind of beaten up by the industry of providing terms and getting minimal deposits. They sent that product out. So when it first started, if I recall correctly, it was like 50%. No, it was 100% up front. Then it went to 50%, 14 days. Then it went to like 20% for 30 days. Now guys are sending product out and it's like 90-day payment terms with no money up front. Now, so basically they provided all the inputs they need for a processor or for another company, to turn that into a product, say to the OCS, then the OCS pays them, let's say, they're a little better now, they're around 45 days, somewhere in there, but let's just say it's 60 days. That grower could be 180, 270 days before he gets paid for the product. If he gets paid.
I've just, dude, like, you're talking about this and I'm thinking legacy market going, okay, I'll front you 10 packs, right? But I need to see this after this after this. And it's almost like the legal market became, because, you dropping a pound is different than dropping 10, 20, 30, right? Compared to a hockey bag, right? So you are exactly describing the way the legacy market operated based on the quantity that you harvested and were putting to market, right? Because a pound, right? 2,400 here, 3,500 here, in the last days, 1,200 here because, legalization. But if you're dropping 5 or 10, I need time to move it. I'm going to sit on this. I'll pay you when I can pay you. You can expect it in about 30 to 60. And as you were describing, I'm just thinking, holy shit, this was the legacy market or is the legacy market, right? But again, you need that capital because that was a cash business, right? And it's not unlike that in a lot of ways still, even though we're not dealing with cash. It's very similar where you've got a lot of, receivables yourself. And you need to be able to service those. So
I couldn't agree more. And the legacy market, although the legacy operated like a mature, market, right? And people made decisions. It's interesting that the legacy piece. So obviously, maybe not obviously, I'll clarify. So, as a regulated credit union here, we're only permitted to ban licensed businesses, right? And like I said, we don't want to be the heroic failure, right? I'm not here to make a statement. I'm here to, provide a service that businesses need and things.
Right.
The legacy ones, and I grew up in the UK, right? And we used to smoke this like absolute garbage. You can't even get it here. Right? We used to come over from Amsterdam and someone stop, right? And you burn it, you mix it with tobacco, right? You know what we did out there, right? And I'm not proud of this. So it's like you get out here, I move out here to BC and everyone's talking about these legacy strains. And
it's like the Holy Land all of a sudden. Yeah, you're going to Zion, baby. Like,
but there's a heritage here, right? There's a heritage. And I'm kind of like this new kid, right? I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And so, the other thing when you're saying about the international market, Canada was kind of took first mover disadvantage, right? We were like the first industrialized nation to legalize it. But, and it's hard to get everything right first time, but we've been pretty slow to, slow to tweak and amend the legislation. And we do a lot of advocacy on that. We work with the industry to advocate around that, around excise and packaging and the stamps and all this good stuff. And one of the responsibilities that I can have is try to make legalization more palatable for legacy businesses, right? Try to make it like a financially workable for legacy businesses who would transition. Because my guess would be the number one reason that a legacy business doesn't transition is financial, right? There might be ideological stuff in there, there might be other stuff, but the number one reason is probably going to be financial. And so, we can help in a major way if we create these products which say, oh, actually, I could make my business work. I could bring legacy strains through. I can kind of promote that kind of craft part of the business, of the industry. That is really cool because, once we lose that, we never get it back. Right.
That's right.
I think, the more I've got involved, the more I've met people who are passionate about this industry, the more respect I have for that. That issue and the issue of, previously incarcerated people and things like, they're the things which kind of go, okay, yeah, there's a real history here that we need to address. Now, I can't, there's things I can be an interested bystander, right? But for the financial bit about making it financially work for legacy, we're working hard to do that. And I'm happy to speak to legacy people in the legacy industry. I do so all the time about what their blockers are. And, we try to fix that as well, right? But, we can't bank them at the moment. I should say, for my regulator, right? We don't bank them at the moment.
We don't bank them, yeah. Wes, put a big disclaimer on, but you can reach out to Mike and Josh, and they will converse with you about how you could potentially transition into the legal side.
Exactly.
I'm of the opinion, too, that now is the time to start doing that kind of stuff. I mean, we've had an incredible shaking of the sheets. We've seen a lot of CCAA things go along. I think the industry is starting to mature in the right ways. But honestly, I still think we're in the first or second inning of the game. I think we barely started. And I think it's going to keep going. So I think if you're in the legacy market, I think now is the time to really start thinking about making this kind of transition. Some people would argue against that, but, the way that these growers now and the way that these businessmen are creating these products, Legacy's just not going to be able to compete. I mean, it's just not going to. There's a reason that a farmer's market tomato is 10 times the cost of going to the grocery store. Yeah, is it better quality? Yeah, you could argue, but we do have some pretty serious standards here where you can buy organic for way cheaper than what Legacy is, right? So. Yeah. So now is the time, in my opinion. I think it's a great time to be in cannabis. I'm very bullish on it. I have been for a long time, and I find it exciting. I love talking to these people. Like Mike was saying, I've become good relationships with a lot of these people, and watching them grow and bring the product out to me is honestly, it's been phenomenal. They're truly phenomenal.
Yeah. That's wild. I want to get into the program and some of the workings of it a little bit, but it's funny when you're saying that because when I operated in that side, I'd ask my friends all the time, like you become, that's your friends, that's your circle of friends now. Right. And it's, man, if I could you can't claim taxes. You can't, right? I can't put this on my T4s. I can't, there's no viable business here. And you would ask if you could operate legitimate, and we're talking 2012, 13, 14, right? If you could pay taxes and claim this, would you? Almost resounding yeses across the board. And then we bring this framework and then we legalize and we get to the point where we're like, oh my God. But as we mature, and you're right, first, second inning, I don't know, the jury's out, but we're definitely right in the beginning for sure. But I think that, again, it's bringing in these types of programs where you understand it's from an area of intelligence where you've seen what's going on. You understand legacy enough, right? You don't have to be someone that was fully operating and dropping packs and doing, you don't have to do that to understand how it operated, especially if you have the connections. But then you now see this side of the industry and you've had time to assess and understand, okay, here are the critical issues that we're seeing, capital being one, the other is, we get into the other side of it, which is the regulations. And then, the whole race to the bottom by, looking at how potent is this weed, and then lab shopping. There's a number of issues, and we won't get into that. But early days, you ask these individuals if you could have this as a legitimate company, would you pay tax on it? Of course. I can apply for a mortgage if I need to. I can apply for a car. Like, otherwise it's cash. And dealerships frown upon cash transactions, by the way. Anyway, just, I don't know where I heard that. But anyway, so tell us in our audience, how do we participate in this program other than picking up the phone, emailing, Mike or Josh? Like, what is the inroads into it? What is the assessment you go through, and then when do you start that? You're talking a day, so obviously you've got a lot of work there potentially to do ahead of that.
Josh, sorry, Josh, you're going to be the best person to talk to that. But like the one thing I just wanted to pick up on was timing, because that's what we're talking a little bit about that. And there's an old adage in banking, which is, the time to look for liquidity is when you don't need it, right? When you've run out of road, and you're like, oh shit, we need to do something, you go to the bank. We really don't like that. We like you to be organized. We like you to think ahead. And so, there's a lot of businesses who are going, hey, actually, I can see, I'm going to do this thing next year. We're going to do this. We're going to invest a little bit. So that'll be cash flow heavy. I'll come and see you then. And we're like, actually, come and see us now. It doesn't cost them. It doesn't cost you anything to get approved, right? And we set that up. And the most successful businesses are the ones which, have that kind of foresight where they say, okay, I'm going to go and get the liquidity. I'm going to go and fund my business way before I need it.
Yeah.
And so once you made that decision, like I said, you give Josh a call. So over to you, Josh.
Fail to plan to fail. I love that. I mean, that's something that we've looked at forever, right? Which is we all do it though, right? In some point in our life, regardless of what it is, we get to that point of turmoil. We're like, oh shit, now I need to figure out a solution, right? The leaking roof or whatever it might be. Now I got to deal with it, and it's an even bigger expense, or you're doomed. So I love that. That makes sense.
Yeah. So I'll jump in. So the hardest part about our system, Mike was already doing. So, everybody in the banking world, or even in the private finance world or family office world, they're basically looking at AML, which is anti-money laundering, and KYC, which is, the Canadian standard of know your customer. So Mike was already doing that heavy part because he was opening bank accounts. So that's literally 90% of the work. If we can get you opened as a bank account through his risk department, and we can get, check all of, your licensing is up to date, your excise tax and, is legit, like all that kind of stuff. Then you can get approved pretty quickly. Our requirements for the program are actually pretty clean. One is you got to bank with us. That's number one. And I don't think that's unreasonable. The second thing that we do that to me was, again, to say to Mike's credit, the most impressive thing is we understand that there's an excise tax arrear problem in Canada. Like, it's just a fact.
Right.
There's going to be manageable arrears and then unmanageable arrears. And so for us, we came to the determination that as long as your excise tax is below 10% of your annual sales or your running annual sales, you're within management. You can pay that off. I have had many conversations with the CRA. They've blown me away continuously. They are not out to put you out of business. They just want communication and they want understanding. If you're doing, 15 million a year in sales and you owe 13 million, you probably got a problem. And we're probably not going to be able to help you at that point. But most people realize that, they're a little bit behind on this, but getting that working capital injection, working with the CRA, they get an opportunity to get ahead. And I've actually had CRA refer people to me, if you can believe that, unofficially.
Wow. That's awesome.
And it's simply because, they needed that opportunity to make sure that they can get caught up. And think about the superpower.
Yeah, well, they want their money. They want their money too, right?
This goes back to you. What you got into is like this is a business for the government. This is a revenue stream.
Right.
So they're not here to put you out of business. So what we found too that was interesting too is like, imagine the superpower. You get to go to the CRA and say, hey, listen, I've got arrears right now about 7%. I've just signed up an amazing opportunity with Community Savings where I can get liquidity so that I'm always going to make sure I make my payments. I need you to change my license renewal from 3 months to 6 months, or back to a year, or back to 2 years. Because these ones that are month to month, I mean, they might be in a little bit of trouble, And the government didn't design the excise tax program as an interest-free loan, like some of the cannabis companies have used, and they're the ones that enter in CCAA. So from that aspect, we just look at the excise arrears at 10%. But here's the beautiful part. Who's paying the bill? Well, we don't know who's paying the bill. It's the government. So really, our credit risk is with the government. Do they intend to pay, and can they pay? That's really the question.
Wow.
And that changes everything for these cannabis companies, because I think a lot of them approach me and they're like, hey, do I have to personal guarantee? Am I going to have my credit online? My company, it's like all of these things are legitimate concerns if you're a human buying a car or if you're going to get a mortgage for your house. But accounts receivable is really based upon the ability of the invoice issuer's ability to pay. Well, we know the BC government can pay. We know the OCS can pay. We know that, that AGLC is going to pay their bills, and we'll buy all those invoices. So really what it comes down to is are you looking at insolvency? Can you manage your excise tax arrears? How's your accounts payable going? Will this influx of cash give you the ability to go to your suppliers and say, hey, I know you give me 30 days, but hey, if you were to give me a 5% discount if I paid cash, would that be an option? Now, all of a sudden, you got an opportunity to use our money for your advantage to increase the profit line. So there's so many that's basic supply chain finance, if anybody wants to look up. But the whole idea behind this is the more liquidity that Mike can inject through our system at Weekend Capital and Community Savings is going to be better for the industry all the way along. So anybody that's watching this thinking, I'm not going to get approved, I'm going to have, this problem on my credit. We don't look at that. We look at some of the really important parts of your financials. We look at your ability to pay, and we make sure your receivables are where they want to be so that we can help you out. We're not in a position to do B2B right now, so the growers are, really, they need to have a sales amendment for us to be able to help them. But it wouldn't stop them from going to the processors that they deal with and say, hey, do you deal with Community Savings and Weekend Capital? Because if you could, if you could factor that invoice, I'm happy to take a 5% discount if you pay me in 15 or 30 days instead of 90 to 180 to 270 days. So there's a whole ecosystem here of chain of events that we can help customize for you so that you can understand our product a little bit better. But, overall for me, I think this is an incredible opportunity for not just growth on the cannabis side, but on the banking side. Like now bankers can go, oh, wait a sec. I've watched all these payments come through our account for the last 2 years. I see how you pay your bills. I see that you're paying the taxes on. Yeah, I'm willing to talk to you about a mortgage now. Yeah, I'm willing to explore the idea of equipment financing, but that's how it's got to start. And that's what Mike has done, which, to me, I'm constantly, in awe of the foresight to do that. Truthfully.
That's wild.
I guess on that note as well, knowing that the plan is to go to Ontario eventually and I guess domestically as well, what advice would you have for those LPs listening in those regions right now on what can they do to prepare for your guys' arrival? If they know this sounds good to them, this is something that they want to look into. What can they do now to start preparing for when you guys eventually do enter the regions?
I mean, what I say is, as Josh said, we design this product. We wanted the vast majority of LPs to qualify for it, right? No one wants to go into the bank and kind of have that conversation if you feel it's not going to go forward. But so we designed this that the vast majority of LPs will be approved, and I think that's come through true. The one thing, if it was, hey, one thing to stick in your mind would be the CRA, right? The CRA are a super creditor. They get to move, they get to move me out of the way, right? If you owe me money, the CRA can just cut in line and take me over. So no lender likes the CRA to be a problem. So your excise, if you've got that now, we realize businesses need to operate. So we do have a threshold. If people have got excise debt, that's fine. But that's the one thing that would be the immediate, that's the first question we asked, so to speak, right? What's your excise thing? Beyond that, and I think, Josh explained it pretty well. We designed it so most people would qualify if you got a license to operate. And we'll get to know your business. We want you to bank with us because that's how we get to know your business. We look at the numbers, we look at the numbers thrown through your account, and we can tell a lot about that, really. But it's going to be, Josh, you might want to talk about the differences between Ontario and BC if there are any. But I think it'd be quite similar, right?
Yeah, they are, but it's a much bigger market with less solutions. There's really two big credit unions that are helping on the retail side. One's retail, one is retail and LPs. But unfortunately, they really haven't offered any services. They give you banking. It's not cheap banking. Well, that's it. You're kind of one and done. And I think that's what's attracted some of these, other institutions out east into what we're doing, because it's a service they know that they want to provide. They've never had a vehicle to get there to provide it. And then, of course, Mike being such a vocal advocate has made them go, oh, wait a second, maybe we can do this. And it's been glacier speeds. Mike always warns me, glacier speeds. but the fact that they're even open to it is mind-blowing. Because here's the reality, okay? I mean, let's just cut to the chase. The reality is that if the Americans ever get serious about the Safe Banking Act and they start to pass that stuff, they will walk in here and they will take over the entire industry because they look at money so differently than Canadians do. I make this joke, but it's absolutely true. If you walk up to a Canadian and say, "Give me $100 and I'll give you 105 back in 30 days," they would say it's too much risk. The American would already have their wallet out. That's that is the reality. So when the American institutions come in here, it's kind of a warning shot to the institution in Canada that you got to be ready. I mean, this is our industry. You should be banking our industry. Yeah. You should be providing solutions and services, for a legal business. That is not small. I mean, we're talking $5 billion industry here. Like, and a lot of, that I will say about this, I don't buy into the doom and gloom that everybody's talking about. I do not. The numbers do not dictate a doom and gloom. There's going to be consolidation. There's going to be retail cleanup. That's like anything. Your shoe store, you get 2 shoe stores at West 4th. One of them's not going to make it. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the reality of the business. So that part is good. But anyways, back to the Ontario thing. I think what they need to be ready for is A, get excited because we are coming. We're working very hard to make that happen. We believe in the industry and there's people out there that believe in it as well. That just haven't had the vehicle to offer you to be able to support the industry in the way that you want. And my goal is, I'll be frank, my goal is to get the family offices and the heavy chargers out of the way. I want them gone. I want this industry to really grow and I want to be a part of it. And, going back to original state, there's a lot easier ways to make money in the world. There just is,
There is.
Yeah, there is. And, but I love this industry. I love the niche of it. I like the complexity of it. I like seeing the results of what it can do. And it's super exciting. So I'm working tirelessly to get this done in Ontario. And I'm hoping to make some announcements soon. I've been getting emails already from Ontario LP saying, "Hey, we're ready to go. We want to be part of your pilot project out there." But again, that goes all back to the credit of Mike having, the vision to see where this could really go across Canada. And I truly hope he's, recognized for being one of the leaders on that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Guys, I love it. I think it's beautiful. And they always say, Josh, I think I mentioned this the last time we met, but your success is usually found where your passion and frustration meet. So even though you may be able to make a lot more money in other industries, you're not going to be satisfied, buddy. You just won't be.
Yeah, I love it. I love it, man. And I think Mike does it too. We talk about the industry a lot, maybe more than our family sometimes,
Well, but I mean, if you're passionate about it and it's, you're truly solving problems, I think that's typically where your family comes in to understand,
100%.
right? Because you may be tired. Yeah. I could just imagine how many emails, how many calls you can hear, you can hear it in the background. They're coming in more. This isn't live. How are you getting so many emails? But I think it's just a matter of there's understanding when they know you're passionate about something, because that's what's fueling you. Right. And they see that it changes your entire perspective on everything. And I could just imagine how you feel when you've been able to help, one of these operators that they've been turned down, they've been turned off, and now they're looking at, I just don't know what to do. Yeah. And then you come in with a solution and they can breathe and you feel good about it. Right. That's got to be awesome.
People in this industry, Tom, as well, they're pretty shrewd, right? Especially the people who've come through the legacy that because they built, they were operating in that environment. They had to be really good at reading people, right? Of who I'm going to work with and who I'm not going to work with, because there wasn't another way to decipher that. People are pretty shrewd. And so anyone getting into this industry because they want to take out of the industry and that's all they want to do, I think people spot them pretty quickly, right?
Yeah, and they don't last long.
They don't at all, right? So, we kind of figured that out early on and said, look, these people aren't stupid and they want to see us in and on the same team, right, so to speak. And I think that's been the secret to us gaining that acceptance. And then like I said, the people we work with, I think we can say the name because it was a press release. So Woody Nelson, the LP out here, great little cannabis
incredible LP.
We just built that partnership. We had a meeting like this over Zoom or something, and we knew we were on the same lines, and it's been an incredible success story. Now, there's a lot that those guys do right. This wasn't the only thing, but without this, that's what they're telling us. Without this, they wouldn't have enabled that 2x growth they got, and that's brilliant. That's for the very rare occasions as a banker, I can go home and tell. And I do tell my kids this. They're young, so probably all the details, but I do tell, what Daddy does to help people and patent
That's
people
awesome.
in what.
Yeah, I help people grow cannabis. Whoops.
Yeah. A better conversation now than in a few years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, depending on their age. That's
and
sure.
I'll give a shout out to our other client that's been public. The other ones that are private, I won't, do that until they can tell us. But, Tricanna has been a great example as well. I don't know if you've ever met Dana.
Love
and I don't know if you've ever met Dana, but Dana's a very, very, very smart operator. She's definitely been through the ringer on this industry, but her background is the CPA, so she knows the numbers, she knows the accounting, and the solution for us has been, that she doesn't have to dip into RSPs. She gets the working capital when she needs it, and I love promoting those two companies that have come public because they're phenomenal human beings. Like I've been, unfortunately, I've been out to Woody Nelson, but I've been to Tricanna many times. The people are incredible that work there. They're passionate. They love it. They haven't given up. They're always looking for ways to help more people in the industry, and I'm a huge fan of them. And the same with the team of Woody Nelson. Again, I don't know if you've met them, but like they're incredible people, and they're all on the same page, and they're all trying to get ahead, and they're all trying to do what's right. And some of the other ones that are in the shadow still a little bit that we help that are not private, as they come out to you, you'll just see like the caliber of the people that Mike and I have been going out of our way to help. And that to me is what's exciting. That's the exciting part.
That's so cool. I love it. Well, gents, listen, I think what you're doing is an absolute beautiful thing. It's a necessity for sure. But I can tell just your heart's the why you're in it. And I love the Simon Sinek. I'm a big what's your why guy, and you can tell it's born out of passion. It's born out of an area of support, and I can get behind that. I know Wes can too, so can our audience. But listen, it's been an absolute pleasure. How can we get in contact? I can see it on the screen. WeCanCapital.com, obviously. Josh, I know the last time we met, I think it was call after call after call after call, and you're turning some down. I get you're busy, but obviously you get back to everyone. Any other ways in which individuals should reach out to?
Yeah, for me, listen, I'm not a big social media guy, but I am on LinkedIn. I'm pretty easy to find on LinkedIn. But otherwise, just Joshua at WeCanCapital.com. My phone number is on the website, so you can reach me that way. I try and take every call that I can. But for me, I'm pretty easy to find. LinkedIn is definitely the best way. LinkedIn has been phenomenal, in my opinion, for the cannabis industry. I did use Twitter, but that's a separate discussion on moral and ethics for me. But for me, it's only LinkedIn and then directly on my website. And then for Mike.
Beautiful.
Yeah, call Josh. I never answer on my email. My dad, I haven't spoken to my dad in 2 months. I'm getting shit over this weekend for that. So Josh is much
too big for his.
Yeah, do you know who he is?
Britches.
Listen, that just tells you how honest Mike is about this industry and about his person, because don't expect a quick response. But I will tell you this: the response you get is always unbelievable and well thought out. And I feel very lucky to have met Mike via that other company here in BC, and it's been a great relationship. But I love everything about it.
So cool. Awesome. Gents, thanks for joining Legacies. Much success. We'll be keeping an eye on the program. We'll obviously stay in contact, but it's been great having you on.
Breadstack e-commerce. It might be time to upgrade.
You need any capital, Wes? Those two individuals, Josh and Mike, one, you can see they work very well together. Also, I look forward to meeting them in person. They just give me this vibe of individuals I want to be around. And I love those types of relationships. So
Joshua gives me a very, I don't know why, I get very Stanley Tucci vibes from Joshua. I love it. It's great.
Well, he didn't tell me Mike had an accent. He's from the UK. I mean, that's...
Well, I was going to say, too, Mike reminds me of half the men I grew up with my family.
Exactly. Yeah. It still shocked me when I met your aunt, and I'm like, she has an English accent. What the hell? And then all of a sudden yours starts kicking in. I'm like, what the hell is going on? I'm in bizarro world. Anyways, have some unfortunate news for our audience, but if you haven't caught it till now, Tical will be unable to join us on today's episode. We're going to reschedule. Tical being part of Method Man. Method Man has a Wu-Tang Clan residency in Las Vegas. They've run into a bit of an issue, so we wish them the best of luck to sort that out. I could just imagine what's going on. But anyways, we will reschedule. We will have them back on. They're super apologetic, but that's not to say, I mean, we were stacking them in. We're stacking our guests in. We're trying to do these double segments. That's okay. We have an incredible episode with Mike and Josh, which is very much needed. And these conversations, very necessary. And they don't get talked a lot about, especially.
Yeah, like, it's like finance is a taboo word in this industry.
Not just in the industry, period. Like we don't talk about, you and I are very close. We'll talk about, where we're struggling, where we're benefiting, what we're doing, on a personal level, but individuals do not generally talk about their finances. And I think in order to get out of whatever situations you may be in, you need to talk about finances. You need to talk about, hey, I'm struggling or I'm having issues. And as a business, to your point, yes, don't let it come to the point where you're in dire straits, right? And because that's where the mind just will do whatever it needs to do. Your executive control will change and go, I'm jumping at the first opportunity. And that's not going to be the right opportunity. So be prepared, be planned, reach out to WeCan, reach out to Josh. Don't reach out to Mike. He already told you, reach out to Josh. They'll set you up. They'll figure out, they're going to be coming to Ontario and across the rest of the beautiful country we live in, and dispatching capital. I love that they said, we'll buy every invoice is outstanding. We'll buy every invoice. And I'm thinking, holy shit, like those are balls, right? Like to be able to say that, but also it's a matter of believing in your program. And, it's obviously a very good program. And
I think it's really important to reiterate, and if you didn't catch it, or you obviously did if you watched it, but go back and listen to Mike talk about the legacy stuff. Listen to him talk about, because that's not in my history.
Dude, I could call 100 bankers
about not that I've talked to bankers about legacy market before, but it's not something I would imagine a banker talking about like the way he did.
No.
Understanding where legacy people came from, that there's still an opportunity there to transition legacy people. And I just thought, it was really incredible how he he understands that and is willing to go through that with them.
Point. It's a really good point. And that's why I'm like, first of all respect for that, because I don't know if I could call 100 bankers and be able to talk weed with them. And maybe talking weed is one thing, but understanding the history, the challenges, not only from, Mike comes from the UK, so they've got their own challenges in certain areas, regions, different countries, but he certainly understands it in Canada. We're grateful to have them on, be able to talk about this program and be able to support this industry. That's what we do. So anyways, no Tical today. We will reschedule. Best of luck to them figuring out whatever's going on. And thank you to WeCan and Mike with Community Savings. I love credit unions. You know this. I've said this for a long time. I've struggled in the past where, I invest in real estate and credit union came through every fucking time, man. Every single time. So reach out to them. But we hope you enjoyed the episode. We will see you next week. And don't forget, there is a special episode dropping that Wes is producing with Mr. Mike Downey. But until next time, thanks for joining Legacies.